Welcome back to Nightmare Logic, the podcast that loves kills and thrills. I'm Christopher Smith, and I'm here with
Peter Sawyer.
And join us as we dissect what makes a good film title. So, Peter, did you do anything fun for New Year's?
I mean, I was over at your place.
That's right.
For part of it. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, nothing like playing Cards Against Humanity with a 13-year-old and his mother. That was awkward.
I missed that part.
Oh, that's right. You did. You left. Let me tell you about it. Basically, God, the card that she was judging was something like, "Why am I sticky all over my body?" And he won in that round, and his answer was something like gag reflex or something like that. And he's 13. God, it was awkward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, imagination goes a long way with that.
Takes you a long way.
But I don't think I would want to play Cards Against Humanity with my parents.
No, thank you. Even as an adult, you know. So what about movies? Did you watch anything good this week? Any TV shows or movies?
I watched Paris, Texas for the first time, the Wim Wenders movie.
Oh, yeah.
I liked it. I see it both ways. Some people really love that movie, and I've seen some really hate thrown at it, and I can see both reasons for it. It's got some really charming moments, but it's also kind of long and takes a minute to get to where it needs to go, and there's a lot, so it's, I don't know. I think in the 80s when it came out, it probably stood out a bit more.
Right. Movies moved a lot slower back then in general.
It's true. But it's also like, if you know Harry Dean Stanton's character, you figure out who he is at the end. You're like, that's who we're following? Like, is he a great person?
Right.
But I enjoyed it.
Nice.
How about you?
Me and my fiance, Heather, we finally dived into Pluribus. Got a couple episodes in, and so far I like it, actually. I think it's pretty good.
Right on.
It's a bit more of a sci-fi series, but I still don't really know what's going on. But it has lots of really good reviews, and I get it. It's really well written. So
yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Today, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look ahead at 2026 and discuss what movies or films that we've heard about or TV shows that we're looking forward to seeing in the coming year. And then we're going to jump into our main discussion, which is all about what makes a good film title. I actually really enjoyed kind of doing some research on 2026 and what's coming out. There's way more movies than I thought on the horizon that look really promising for horror cinema based on what I've seen about it. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a few that I have my eye on that I've heard about and am pretty curious about.
Heck yeah. Well, let's see. Is there anything that stood out to you in particular? What's the top of your list?
So I'm going to lead with a movie called Shiver, and for a couple reasons. It ties into this whole title thing. And on a personal level, the last script I wrote is a horror script that takes place in the snow, and this was a title that I was like, oh, that might be very good. And lo and behold, Tommy Wirkola, who did Dead Snow, has this movie called Shiver coming out. And what's interesting about it is I think it's kind of a perfect name for this because it's about sharks, and a pack of sharks is called a shiver.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
So I'm like, that's a really smart use of his name. So it's people dealing with a pack of sharks after a hurricane or something. And I'm like, a good shark movie is always fun. But what's funny is I really like this movie he did called The Trip that ended up on Netflix. And it's not in English, but they're remaking it as a movie called Over Your Dead Body, which I think is a better title than The Trip in English. I can't remember who's in that, but I think that's coming out this year as well. So that might be interesting.
Cool. Yeah. And I think, my first one that I'd love to talk about here is actually coming out pretty soon. It's called Mother of Flies. And it's directed by I hadn't heard of them, the Addams Family. Are you familiar with them? It's like two brothers and their sister's an actor, and she stars in this.
I think so. I think they did a movie on Shudder that is, escaping me at the moment that I've seen before.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. It's dropping on Shudder. Mother of Lies.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a Shutter film. It's so John Adams and Zelda Adams and Toby Poser are the three directors, and it stars their little sister Lulu Adams or Lula Adams. And it's about a young woman facing mortality who ventures into the woods to escape death, which I don't know. It looks pretty good, honestly. And that comes out on January 23rd. So I'm
Oh,
gonna,
right around the corner. I think the other movie that I saw was called Hellblazer. It's something like that. Maybe you can look it up
yeah,
before this
I'm
ends.
gonna check that out. Maybe was it good? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean it's a small movie. It was interesting because you're like, that's a family that made this.
Hmm.
So that's kind of one of the reasons why I was curious about it.
Definitely. I think that's why I made the cut for me, is I was just so fascinated by it's like the Van Trapp family horror directors or something.
Right,
It's
right.
like it sounds really cool. And I'm just interested in, honestly, there's a little side interest, the creative process for people, and the different types of collaboration and how things come to be. To me, is like, I mean, it's part of why we're doing this podcast in some ways, right? Um, so yeah, I'm just interested to see how that works when a family makes a film together. So.
Absolutely. Okay, so my next one, and you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I said this and someone was like, no, it's redo. It's Redux Redux.
That's a really good
I looked
question.
I looked it up. I had the Google thing tell me that it was Redux, the video. So,
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those, what do they call them? Homophones?
oh no.
Not homophobes, homophones, where like it's a French word that we also say in English. And I'm sure someone's going to correct me for being wrong on that. but I think like the French spelling or pronunciation is rida, because I don't know if you noticed, but in French, like you basically just drop the last like 5 or 6 letters a lot of times.
Right.
So I think it's kind of like that, but I also kind of think it's been anglicized or Americanized into Redux. So I think either is proper.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm calling it Redux because I'm American,
I'm into
ignorant
it.
like that. It's by Kevin and Matthew Manis, and they gave us Block Island Sound, which I enjoyed. It's a smaller movie, but it was cool. And this one has an interesting premise. If you are not familiar with it, it's basically a mother is going into different universes to murder her daughter's killer, and it like takes a toll on her humanity. Jesus. Um,
Yeah, the trailer looked really sick, actually.
I haven't seen the trailer.
Yeah. It's I mean, I got one small complaint about the trailer. I don't know, is it a spoiler to talk about the trailer?
Yeah, because I don't want to hear about it. I kind of want to go in blind.
Yeah, going blind. But it does look really good. And one of the things that interests me about it is it stars, well, I'm curious, it stars Michaela McManus. And I'm wondering, is she the sister of the brothers?
I don't know.
Because that could be another Von Trapp family horror filmmakers.
I'm not. I don't know.
Yeah. And then it's also starring Jim Cummings, who I believe did Thunder Road. He's like that.
Jim Cummings is great. He did Beta Test, I think is what it was called, that I really liked. He was in Last Stop at Union County, The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
That's right, Wolf of Snow Hollow. He's kind of like I think he's both an actor and a director, and he also big in the YouTube world or Reddit world. I don't know. He got to start. I used to see his posts on Reddit talking about making his first film, and so I'm sort of also been following his career with curiosity since.
Right. I do know he went to Emerson. Alumni, right?
I had no idea. So did Peter.
Yeah.
Peter's an Emerson alum.
So did these guys actually, Kevin and Matthew Manis.
I wonder if they knew each other from there.
I don't know.
But that comes out soon too.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that one.
February 20th. And by the way, we're gonna put all of our lists of the films that we're looking forward to up on our website, and we'll try to link to whatever trailers are available for him as well, just so if you want to check him out. Yeah. So my next one is Psycho Killer, which is directed by Gavin Polone. And it stars Andrew Walker from Sleepy Hollow and Georgina Campbell, James Preston Rogers. I think it was in The Blackening. It seems to be about a Kansas highway patrol officer who tracks her husband's murderer. And it gets kind of depraved and sadistic as she goes, because it's basically, it seems to be kind of like a satanic cult kind of serial killer film, and I'm kind of a sucker for the occult and satanic cults and things like that. So that comes out at the end of February as well, at February 20th. And I think, I don't know, it looks pretty dope to me.
Yeah, I did see the trailer. It's written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Seven.
Oh, and he's also the star in it.
So
Or
I'm.
maybe I just misread that he's. Did he also write Sleepy Hollow?
I mean, I know him as a writer.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure I just got that confused. So, what's your next one?
my next one is Robert Eggers' Werewolf. Wolf spelled with a U instead of L.
Yeah, that looks great.
You probably know that he did The Witch and The Northman and Nosferatu and The Lighthouse. And what I'm hoping with it is I hope it's kind of like The Witch in terms of it
Yeah,
feels like it's from that time. But I really enjoyed The Northman. I know some people who did not, but I was one of them who did. And I hope it has that kind of level of action.
yeah, for sure. I actually got a screener of The Witch, and my old roommates who were in the TV Academy got screeners of it. So I saw it going. I went in totally blind, and I was like, "This is like fresh take on like horror," like just being super authentic to the period. So I agree with you. I think the more it leans into period, the better I think it's going to be.
I think that's his strong suit.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a fan of his work in general. I didn't see The Northman, but I really did enjoy the other things I've seen. So
Cool.
yeah, I'm really interested in. I got a pair of films actually. I'm going to talk about as one, and I'm not sure I'm interested necessarily in seeing them as much as I'm interested in seeing how well they do. I mean, I'll probably check them out, but they're not on my list because I'm like think they're the most compelling coming forward, but they are compelling in the sense of what it means for the industry and where it's going. And that's Iron Lung, and the other one is The Backrooms. And the reason is both of these come out of YouTube and the internet zeitgeist. And Iron Lung in particular is self-funded and directed by Markiplier. Markiplier, if you don't know, is a YouTuber who has like 23 million subscribers. And he's known for live streaming video games and playing video games. And I don't know, both live streaming and pre-recorded. But what's interesting is this film, Iron Lung, is based on a popular video game that I believe is probably an indie game. And it follows a convict as he navigates an ocean of blood on a desolate moon via submarine in a desperate search for survival resources, which is when it's from a video game, it kind of makes sense, but it's like a kind of a batshit
Yeah, that's
idea
crazy.
for a film,
That's wild.
So, and watching it looks like it could be good though, because it looks like it's the kind of film that's like low budget enough that it has the fingerprints of the filmmaker all over it. So it could either make it good in the end, or it could be its downfall. I'm kind of interested to see. And then the second film I'll talk about, and I'll talk about why I'm excited to see how they do, is The Backrooms. And essentially that came out of this whole genre on YouTube, and also on more like Reddit and 4chan as it applies to more writing. But essentially analog horror is like a form. It's like a digital form of horror where, I don't know, you kind of mix the liminal space and in like psychological horror, oftentimes with found footage and sci-fi elements. And I stumbled upon the YouTube channel a while ago for it. It's super viral. It's probably a lot of people know about it, but it kind of follows people getting stuck in these like weird office back rooms, I guess is the only way to put it. That it's kind of like a maze, and like crazy, creepy, weird shit happens. And it started actually as a thread on 4chan, and then people developing on it and kind of like writing additional like kind of fiction around this concept. But it was really picked up by this guy named Kane Parsons on YouTube, and it went super viral. And his channel has a number of these shorts based on this concept. And now he's doing a feature film, and it was picked up by A24. So it stars Mark Duplass and Finn Bennett. So there's some like firepower behind it, but ultimately it's all derived from YouTube and the internet. So I'm interested to see how both of those do, because there's a lot of talk going on right now about YouTube and YouTube creators being kind of the future of Hollywood. So what do you think about that?
Well, I know what's the guy's name who did the Backrooms? That's
Kane Parsons.
Kane Parsons. I think he's like very young. I think he's still a teenager.
Wow.
So I think he did the Backrooms when he was like 16. Like I think he is. So that's really fascinating to me that someone that young is up at bat. You know?
Yeah, and those films, I mean, honestly, when I saw them, I thought they were pretty impressive just in terms of the atmosphere and fear factor he was able to cultivate on YouTube, you know? So I'm curious to see what he does when you have the budget of a feature film behind you.
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah, and basically, if they do well, then this might be like a proof point for what people are talking about. You know, there's a lot of these streaming platforms are cultivating talent from YouTube and trying to bring them onto their platforms, and also in films, as we see here. And so I'm curious how that works. You know,
It's like where there's smoke, there's fire, but the way the kids call fire, that's fire.
totally. Yeah, and you know, Iron Lung, not in particular, because Markiplier self-funded this. You know, you make a lot of money when you have 23 million subscribers on YouTube, and you know he didn't have to compromise his vision at all. Also, he probably couldn't you know, it's probably not funded nearly to the extent that something else is on this list, but at the same time, he has this plan to self-distribute it, and you know, you would think that might be through his YouTube channel, and I bet you at some point it'll end up there, but he's actually putting it in a ton of theaters. And so to me, that's a really interesting model is, you know, he has all these fans that are calling local theaters and convincing them to like carry the film.
Right. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I fully back that.
So, you know, right now, I think in the industry, part of the struggles that it's going through has a lot to do with alternate distribution for indie films, because right now there's basically like 4 or 5 gatekeepers, and it's the big corporate entities that own the various streaming platforms. You know, because they're all owned, like several of them are owned by like one owner, you know, so you really only have like 4 places to pitch ideas to these days. So,
Yeah, man. Innovation, key to survival.
yeah. So what do you got next on your list?
So on the other side of the spectrum, I think there's probably a lot of money behind this one. And I don't know that much about it, but it's also one that I don't want to know much about besides just the loose plot. Flowervale Street.
Mm.
And I didn't even realize it until I like looked it up that it was David Robert Mitchell, who's known for It Follows, that's behind this. I recently watched Under the Silver Lake, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, was that good?
Yeah, it's weird, but it's kind of a good weird. I appreciated a lot of.
Is it
things
Silver Lake
behind
here in
Yeah,
LA?
it's very very Los Angeles, like surreal noir. Yeah, worth checking out. But the premise to this is a family in the 80s starts to notice strange things happening in their neighborhood. So I get the sense that it's like genre blending a few different things to make it kind of fun.
Yeah.
But
And it stars Anne Hathaway, Ewan McGregor, and Maisie Stella, so it's got a great cast. And it's for Bad Robots, obviously. They got money.
I think I saw that.
Yeah. And that's coming out August 14th, it sounds like. And, you know, that almost made my list, but I knew you were going to talk about it. So, but I'm a big fan of It Follows in general. And so I'm really interested to see what, you know, he does with this concept.
Well, and I think they're filming They Follow. Is that what it's called? The sequel this year?
More than one.
Yeah.
Is that some sort of like polyamory?
I don't know.
Metaphor.
I don't know. I again, that's another thing. I probably want to go sort of blind.
Right. And so my last one here, is that your last one?
I got one more, but
I got one more. Okay, well, let me drop this one. So this is going to be interesting. I know very little about it, and it's called Whalefall. And I don't know who directed it. Apparently I didn't write that in my notes, but it stars Austin Abrams. And the premise of it is fascinating. It's about a diver who gets swallowed by a giant sperm whale, and he's going to run out of oxygen in about an hour. That's all I know. But it could be really great and like imaginative, and it's a very unique premise for a film. Right. But also it sounds kind of like it could be limiting. So I'm interested to see how they negotiate that. It's probably got to be kind of a real-time film.
Yeah, I mean, there are those movies where it's like a ticking clock. That's it. And
Yeah.
those are fascinating because it just kind of keeps you on your edge of your seat the whole
Yeah.
time.
But you also imagine the stomach of a whale is probably not, I mean,
You
they're
got some
huge
room,
animals.
right?
Well, but you get some room, but it's not like a lot of room.
Well, yeah, I imagine too, there could be like sharks in there swimming around,
Well, I
you
guess,
know?
yeah, it depends on how the writer director takes it, like, or maybe it's a portal to an interdimensional liminal space. He ends up in the back rooms. We don't know. Could be cool.
It's interesting. When does that come out?
That comes out October 23rd.
Fuck yeah, it does. That's my birthday, and that's National Horror Movie Watching Day.
Hell yeah. That's it's going to be a nice little birthday present for you, hopefully.
Right. And so the last movie that I have here is gotten some hype among people who've seen it. I think it's probably played some festivals. It's by a guy named Curry Baker. He did this short that you can watch on YouTube called The Chair that I thought was pretty creepy. So I was like, all right, man, that got my attention. He also did something called Milk and Cereal spelled like how you'd spell serial killer, which I have not seen. But this one, the log line is after breaking the mysterious, in quotes, one wish willow, end quotes, to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic finds himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discovers that some desires come at a dark, sinister price.
Ooh.
So I'm intrigued.
Yeah, that does sound good. Do you know when that's been released or?
I don't. I feel like it's in the spring, if not like February, but I could just be mixing something up.
And what's that called again?
Obsession.
Obsession. I'm going to check that out. Great. And my last one I want to talk about is and throw a bone to people who are interested in sort of post-apocalyptic sci-fi kinds of films, which I'm a big fan of those. This one's called Worldbreaker, and it's also coming out soon at the end of January. And it's directed by Brad Anderson, who did Session 9, which is one of my favorite horror movies, as well as The Machinist. And it stars Luke Evans and Mia Jovovich. So, also love Mia Jovovich. And basically, it's this post-apocalyptic alien sci-fi thriller, and it puts a family in the crosshairs of this invading alien monster, something destroying the world. The trailer looks amazing, but it's definitely a different vibe than a lot of the films we talked about. It's going to be bigger and more epic, but it also I'm a big fan of alien war movies, so like it's kind of in that vein, I think.
Right on. I mean, I love post-apocalyptic stuff as well.
Yeah. Nice. And so there's a few, I mean, we couldn't touch on everything coming out, and there's some obvious ones that probably missed our list that you might be aware of, like Disclosure Day, Steven Spielberg's next film. Another one that, if we had time, we would have talked about is Hokum, which is the director of Oddities, Damien McCarthy's new film, which supposedly is going to be good. So I'm stoked about that.
He also did Caveat, which is great. That's a pretty creepy,
Right.
like when you watch Caveat, you it's like Oddity is Caveat with a budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Actually,
But
I'm gonna check that
it's
out too.
creepy. It's worth watching.
Nice. So, and then there's the one that's the Maggie Gyllenhaal, The Bride, about the Bride of Frankenstein, which is going to be a tough follow up after Frankenstein this year, Guillermo del Toro's. But it's got a great cast with Christian Bale and Jake Gyllenhaal. So, stay tuned for all of those. Transitioning now into kind of the main topic of today's conversation is the question of like, what makes a good title? Like, what's in a name? When it comes to films, in particular horror films and genre films, like what does the name matter that much? And if so, how do you choose a good one?
Yeah, so titles are usually the first introduction to a movie. It's the identity. You know, if you're going to name a kid, that's going to be who that person is for the rest of their life, unless they change their name. If you're in a band, you're leading with, you want to have a good name. You know, you'll hold on to that until you're like, okay, I'm going to have this band. Like I was listening to a podcast, and Ephraim Schultz of the band Death by Stereo was on, and he was talking about how he had the title of his band's first record years before he used it. And the title is If Looks Could Kill, I'd Watch You Die. Like, yeah, I'm not going to let that go if I thought of that, right? So I think titles matter. But it's interesting because it matters in terms of context of the movie. Because a movie could have a very boring title.
Real quick, you brought up the thing about naming your kid, and that was been on my mind a lot. So I just had a a son a couple years ago, and we have the naming thing is a whole thing, and but we read some things, and apparently there's like studies that show names do impact like kids, and how the name sounds can impact different aspects of their personality, but also how other people treat them and things like that. So it's a heavy responsibility. And I think to a lesser extent, what you're saying with bands and films, I agree. I think it's key to that first impression.
No, absolutely. What is interesting to me is a movie can have kind of a boring title that's like very much on the nose, actually. It's funny because you talk about on the nose with dialogue, but movie titles are often on the nose,
Yeah.
but then you watch the movie and you understand why it's called that. But then again, if you had imagine if Jaws was just called Shark, right?
Yeah.
Like they did that with Alien.
Right.
That worked out, but maybe if you saw the poster for Jaws and it said shark, whatever. But you think about it, like Jaws gives it so much more personality, and I think it's an art form. If you come up with a great title, it's awesome. But as a writer, you don't always have the title first, and you have a placeholder, and then you get to the end of it, and you're like, oh shit, I don't have a good name for this, and you might never. So you just name, like, I'll name a character, name it after a character or a place or
Yeah.
something. And one thing I wanted to say too, Chris, is last week you asked what how do you get an idea for a movie? And once upon a time, I had a word that I was thinking of, and I was like, oh, I could totally do a movie. And this is kind of silly, but if you want to think of a way to come up with a concept for a movie, this could be a lesson. I thought of the word alpha male, but not in the like Axe body spray, tap out shirt, tough guy nonsense. I was like, a play on words, alpha and then male, MAIL. And I was like, oh, if this was the late 90s and you had Rob Schneider, you could do a comedy where you have a mail courier who's, needs money, and the post office is like going to give a big raise to the fastest mailman. Boom.
When I
Alpha
was
male.
younger, I would have watched that probably. No, that's all really good points.
So it's just kind of interesting to dissect titles, and we want to go through some we think are great and others that, could probably use work, but
Yeah.
they're kind of grandfathered in at this point, and you don't think of them otherwise.
Yeah.
But just as a fun exercise.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get there, we have some more specific advice for if you're trying to name a film or a band, perhaps, things that you could think about. And I've had to name a lot of things in my career, both as a filmmaker, but also doing bands or all side hustles and projects that I've had. And not all of them are that. Some of them just like you were kind of hinting at, just like leap out to you, and then other ones you never find a good title or name for, and it could be a real struggle. And which is a mixed blessing, I think, because usually that indicates that your film's pretty complex, I think, but also you want a good title, right? Like so but yeah, like give me one element of something that makes a good title for a film.
So to me, I think if it's sort of thought provoking, suggestive, not too on the nose, almost poetic, I think it can be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it could be totally opposite of that and still work. So if you take the movie 400 Blows, I have no idea what that movie's about. I've recently watched it and really enjoyed it, but it's a French movie, and so 400 Blows in French, I'm not going to even attempt the translation, but it translates basically to live a wild life. So if that had been called Hellraiser, I would have seen that years and years ago, right? But 400 Blows just is like, I don't know what that is, so it's kind of interesting on its own.
Right. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Is like you really want. I mean, at the end of the day, a title, in addition to giving your project a name and an identity, it's also a marketing tool, right?
Absolutely.
And so what you're saying essentially is that you want to create you want it to be evocative in a way that people want to spend their money and their time seeing it.
Right. Well, here's another example that's kind of fascinating. A year or two ago, a movie called The Cursed came out, werewolf movie. I liked it. The original title is Eight for Silver, which I think is a much more interesting title
I agree. I
because
agree.
The Cursed is generic in this. It's generic in the way that I'll still watch the movie, but it doesn't stand out at me because there's probably a million movies with cursed in it.
Yeah, for sure. And to that end, I think that the more that evocative name can also capture the theme, the underlying theme, like, or hint at it. And that doesn't have to be super obvious to me, but like a truly amazing film is like after you see it, it's a good title before you see it, but then after you see it, it takes on like another dimension.
Yes, yeah,
I really like that.
that's exactly that's what you want to aim for. But it's very hard, and it's
Yep.
yeah, it's
Very hard.
it's it's challenging to come up with a great title, as you'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some other things to keep in mind that like probably aren't as, uh, any one of these aren't as crucial, but they're just some good things to keep in mind. Like, uh, relatively short titles are better because sometimes when they're long, people, have a hard time remembering them, or like weird things with the internet these days, just the not being enough room for the name or the title having to be smaller because there's so many words in it. Those are more like logistical concerns, but it's sometimes like shortened to the point is good. Having said that, there are some long films I really like, long film titles that I really like. So
Oh, totally. I think actually most of my list is on the longer side with the word
yeah,
play.
like if it works, it works. Is at the end of the day, I think it's you don't have to be beholden to any rules, but um, I think the reason that the longer ones sometimes work is because it gets a little bit more at what you were just talking about, this sort of evocative and almost more descriptive. Uh, it like paints a picture for you.
Yeah, it gives you something to latch on to. It's just not a generic two words.
Yeah, and it goes with the next thing that I was going to say, which is unique. And when the shorter a title, the harder it is to be unique. So sometimes making it longer is a way to make it unique, and that's important for all sorts of reasons. You don't want your film to be confused with other films. There might be some legal concerns around that.
Right. I mean, another like little anecdote we have is the thing we shot is called Last Call. That's not a very unique title, but if you're thinking of a horror movie in a bar, that's
It's the perfect name.
it fits, right? So a lot of movies I feel like take that, you know, alley
Yeah,
with what they're naming themselves.
totally. And it also depends on if there are other films named something either the same or very similar. You could have a simple, common sounding name that actually is pretty unique because no one's taken it before. So, there's everything has an asterisk in it. It's all to say that it depends in the end of the day. But yeah, with Last Call in particular, we found out after we shot it and had been, pitching it as with this title, we found out there's another short with a similar-ish premise that was supposed to be shot after ours. I don't. I'm assuming it's still happening. I don't even know. But we had to have a conversation about it. If is it worth changing the name? And we ultimately decided,
Right. This is the case where we couldn't think of a better title.
yeah, couldn't think of a better title. And also, like at the end of the day, the risk is less when it's a short film
Right.
than when it's a feature film. So
But it's one last thing I'll say before I guess we move on to the next thing is I would say you don't want your title to sound like an afterthought.
yeah, and
That
that happens way more
way too
often than you
much.
think.
That feels like that's 50% of movies.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot of times when there isn't an obvious choice, and well, either the big caveat with this whole conversation is like if you're doing this with funders, like a studio or a big funder who has a lot of say in the final product, they might have an opinion about what the title is, and they might not be as creative as you. They might not. They might have different concerns than you when it comes to naming a title, and obviously that's a discussion you're going to have with them as a creative. But so it might not be entirely in your control. I got for instance, a friend of mine. He made a film which it's a documentary, but it's heavily features a lot of recreations and it's pretty humorous. And it was called
Is that the title? What was it called?
No, I forget the name of it now. But it was a pretty good title. And then they sold it to Netflix, and Netflix made him change it to The Legend of Cocaine Island, which, if you haven't seen it, is a great film. Go check it out. But it's a much worse title than what it
Really?
was before.
That
But
ti
it's more descriptive, and I think that there's keywords in it that might make people click on it more. And so that's what company like Netflix is concerned with. Who's going to click on this?
Yeah, right.
And that might not be, in their view, compatible with whatever creative name that you come up with.
I mean, that's a wild name, but I get it because it's a wild concept.
It is, but it also, compared to what the movie is, I thought, like, it logically makes sense, but it just doesn't fit the vibe of the
I
movie, in my
right.
opinion. So, and it was really just in comparison to the original, which was better. So yeah, so that kind of tees up the next little bit of this conversation, which is there are a number of logistical concerns. For instance, a big one for me is if it's easy to spell. And I kind of learned this the hard way. Like, so my last feature documentary is called Currency, and it's current like current in water. So Current, and then C like SEA. And the reason I named it that is because it's a play on words, and it fits because it's about illegal fishing and overfishing in the ocean. And so currency, right? It kind of evokes this idea of exploiting the ocean. But whenever I tell it to somebody, I have to explain that it's not spelled the normal way
Right.
currency is spelled, but it's current in C. And let me tell you, that's actually like gets annoying after a while, but also makes it hard for people to remember when they want to go home and look it up.
Oh, interesting.
So I have some small regrets naming it that. I mean, I do like the name in general, but like that aspect of it was kind of a little bit of a regret.
There goes my alpha male idea.
Well, I don't know. That might be a little
I'm
different. 'Cause,
kidding. But
at least the problem with currency though is that it's like people think it's a totally different word, not like a different spelling of the word. Even.
right. So yeah, just be like, here, I'll just text you the movie, and then you send them to the IMDb, and they're like, oh, clever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
And,
you
and
don't
they
have
people like it when they know, but it's like getting them
Yeah.
that understanding is hard. And along with that is also easy to so it's easy to spell, but also easy for people to find. So like SEO reasons is something to really think about this day and age. Because if you're like have some like name that sounds a lot like other names or is hard to spell, when someone sits down to like Google it, like it might not come up or they might type in the wrong thing and then they never find it, So more and more we gotta like think about the internet.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. The other obvious thing is, what other titles are out there, and from a legal perspective, if you can name it uh, the same thing. And when you finish a film, you have to you have to get errors and omissions insurance. And part of that is doing a title search to see what other films are named the same or something very similar when they came out. And they use that to evaluate the level of risk in terms of being sued for intellectual property and things like that. I don't know that it's that big of a factor in because you see a movie's named the same thing all the time, But I think it really does have to do with if it's the same year, like if the other film is a bigger film and has, a larger budget and legal team behind it, those kinds of things. But it's just something to put on your radar that, there might be some challenges in the legal clearing on the back end and you might have to find another name. Do you have any like personal preferences on what you like in a name?
Because I think I have more of like pet peeves than like a checklist of things I like.
Well, I got a little bit of that too. Like for instance, I'll just go through my list real quick to see what I'm talking about. Like, I do like names that are like puns or a play on words a lot of times if it fits the movie. But I just there's something about a title working on multiple levels that I think just makes it feel a little more satisfying. So there's that, and then there's I sometimes like very literal names, like you were saying earlier. Like shark or but I also kind of think those work better with more comedic films when it's like just blatantly literal and on the nose, like Scary Movie or something like that. So And I'm a fan of alliteration. I think most people are subconsciously, so
Yeah, no, I hear you.
that's a
I
good thing
like
to keep in mind.
alliteration.
Yeah. And I also like that mystery behind it, like makes you want to know more.
Right. And I mean, I like titles that are suggestive, that don't spell out exactly what it is, but clues you in enough to get your attention.
Yeah. Cool. So then, yeah, tell us what titles that you like.
Okay.
So what we did is we challenged each other to come up with a list of names we liked and then a few that we didn't, and we'll discuss the ones we didn't in more detail and perhaps suggest alternate titles that might have been better. And these are films that could have been made whenever, but we just wanted to use them as a way to illustrate the points we're talking about. So, what are some names that you like?
Okay. I love the title In the Mouth of Madness. That has a little alliteration. It rolls off the tongue.
That was also on my list.
It gets you wondering what that means. It's not the mouth of madness, it's in the mouth of madness. Whose mouth? Like, like it's just like that's yeah, a movie I want to see if I just see the words.
Yeah, I mean that is evocative, right? Very
Right.
evocative.
So that's the first one that came to mind. I think Back to the Future is a great title.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's an oxymoron. The movie, if you're going back to the future, you're actually going back to the present, right? And the movie, but it I think makes more sense once you see the movie.
Yeah,
For a comedy time travel movie.
exactly. You could think about that title for a while, and like I did.
Like it's clever. Like these titles, most of the ones I'm saying, I think people really went the extra mile with thinking of it. They show imagination. I think that's what I really appreciate in titles. Another one is The Hills Have Eyes. It's like you're being watched by who? It's like you all right, that's
exactly.
suggestive.
You immediately feel like you're being watched.
True Lies, another oxymoron, makes more sense once you see it.
Right.
Right. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. That is, if it was just like the nanny that watches the baby, it does not hit the same way.
You're absolutely right.
So it's like cradle is a great word.
It is a great word, actually. I agree. And also the hand, right? Because, in films, we film body parts like hands and eyes quite a lot because they're very expressive.
Yeah.
And so don't sleep on a hand, man, because a hand really is evocative.
No, for sure.
I love that word evocative too, by the way.
Yeah, I clocked that. Another one, I mean, it's Shakespeare, so you can't go wrong. Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yep.
It's ominous, it's threatening, yet it's poetic.
And it's proper grammar.
Like you'd say, bad things are coming my way. Just does not have the same ring, right? Another one that's a little more simple but still suggestive is Wait Until Dark. It's kind of straight to the point,
right?
But it's teasing that something bad's gonna happen at dark. Here's a Western: The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Who's the good? Who's the bad? Who's the ugly? It's 3 nouns, but they're progressively getting worse.
It's such a great film too.
Yeah, I mean it earns its title. The next is Hard Candy, because if you watch the movie, it's kind of flipping that whole thing of like, don't take candy from strangers, with a kid who's trapping a pedophile. And it hard candy, right?
Yeah.
It totally works.
Yeah, and it sounds like what it's also means.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, is they lean towards what they are. The last one is People Under the Stairs. That's another kind of longer one, but I'm wondering who
that one is a bit on the nose. Right?
Yeah, no, it totally is. That's kind of breaking the rules of everything I'm saying here.
But see, and there's always exceptions that work,
Right. Just because it's like, well, People Under the Stairs sounds, all right, why are people under the stairs? Right?
Yeah.
So those were 10 that I came up with of titles that I really like.
Great. Why don't you save your ones you didn't like, and then we'll do those together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ones that I liked that I came up with were It Follows, which we touched on a little bit earlier, but I really like it as a name for a film because there's something ominous about something following you and you don't know what. And it just, when you see the film, there is this sort of steady, ominous aspect to the creature following the
Right.
person. And the name kind of sells that immediately, you know? The title just evokes like it follows.
Oh, I'm with
Like,
you.
yeah.
It's also a Minor Threat song.
Nice. I surprisingly didn't know that. I also really like Nope. And it's not to say that I'm, not all of these I think are like the best films necessarily, but I thought Nope really kind of expressed the tone of Jordan Peele's style of horror, where it's got a slight comedic undertone to it. And in that particular film, you just know there's going to be a moment where you see the character sees something and then nopes out of there. It's just, I think it's kind of brilliant, and it's fresh, it's unique, it's a different take on a title.
Well, all right. So this is a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not, but I had heard that Nope stood for Not of Planet Earth. Did you ever hear of anything like that?
I didn't. That would be interesting, but also wouldn't it have been? Was it all capitalized or like?
I don't know, because I think I had read that before the movie came out, and I was like, oh, that's why he called it. So then I was kind of clued into one of the aspects
Well,
of
it
it.
could be one of those things where you have the title and you're like, and it could stand for this, and then it's like layered, Like, but either way, I still like it, even if I might like it more if it also stands for that or did stand for that. Um, so then I had Let the Right One In, which is another longer one, but also I kind of feel like is right. It's like almost like a line of caution, yeah,
Right, right, yeah.
and so it kind of sets up that dynamic just from the title, and I really like that.
Do
Uh,
you do you think Let Me In is a better title, or Let the Right One In? Because Let Me In, I believe, is the American remake.
I prefer Let the Right One In.
Same.
Yeah. Then I had Under the Skin, which I actually really like because, well, skin's a great word. And under the skin, you're already kind of like getting into gore, vibe.
Right, something gets under your skin.
Yeah, and something gets under your skin, and also, is something wearing a skin, like in like or is there like a something trying to hide or like pretend like it's a human? I mean, there's all sorts of ways you could take that, and it's dark, so
Yeah.
I just really like it. And so this one, I like the title for more than I probably like the film, but Saw. And this is one of those ones where it's literal, but also it, it's like a word that you wouldn't necessarily just name something, but it works on because it's just torture porn, and there's so many saws, and it's a harsh word, It just you just know someone's gonna get cut.
Well, it's funny when that was coming out, or I think there was buzz before it came out. I was like, Saw. It's like what someone saw, like not the tool, but the
Oh yeah.
past tense of seen. So I didn't know that until I watched it.
Ah, interesting. I don't think I ever had that experience, but I could see it. Hereditary, I thought was a great name for what the movie's about, and it sticks out in it's memorable and
Right.
kind of mysterious, and it totally works with the plot. So I think that all in all, it ticks all the boxes. There might be a version that's more interesting and mysterious, but I think that really worked by bringing all those elements together. And then Final Destination
Earns its title.
earns its title. It's a good one. Bodies, bodies, bodies. I don't know why, but something about repeating bodies 3 times to me just really it really jumps out at you.
Right. And if you can't remember the title, you're like, it's got the same word over and over and over.
Yeah, totally, totally. If it had just been bodies, that wouldn't have been good.
Right.
But the fact that it's bodies, 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 I don't know why. It just really makes it. And this one is an oldie but a goodie, and Peter kind of referenced it earlier, but Jaws. And I like it for the reason that you said, though, was that it could have been shark. It could have been anything kind of like adjacent but lame. But they found like the one word that is,
It's saying it without saying it.
it's that same without saying it, and it's scary. And you just think about the teeth, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm going to do one more. And I also had In the Mouth of Madness, so I don't need to say that. I really liked An American Werewolf in London as a title. It is also on the nose, but it's a kind of a slightly more humorous, I guess, or whimsical take on it. And I just really like it's very descriptive. Like you can paint a picture in your head of these like dumb American tourists encountering werewolves in a ancient far off land, you know,
Right, yeah, you kind of have an idea of what you're getting.
getting into. Yeah. So now that brings us to films that could have been better, have better titles. What do you got on your list?
Okay.
Well, we'll switch off. You do one, I'll do one, and then the idea here is we're going to talk about why we don't like it and then suggest one or two potential alternatives.
Well, so here's the thing, and these are movies we've seen. I personally enjoyed very much all these movies that I'm about to name. So no shade towards what they named them, but if I saw them besides maybe the last one just by names and knew nothing about them, I much rather watch a movie called Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia or At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, which I didn't mention either before, but I was like those are loud and proud, right? Those are like will get your attention. These kind of you can easily overlook. You're probably familiar with most of these, but I'll start with the first one.
Yeah, go for it.
Chris, if you're not familiar with this, I'll tell you. The movie is called Threads. And if for those of you guys who don't have any idea what it is, it's feels like you're watching reality in a way because it's I think like early 80s in Sheffield, England, leading up to when a nuclear bomb goes off, what happens during and then the aftermath. So it feels like you're watching a documentary, and it's pretty terrifying. But I'm like Threads. That's what like
Could be anything.
yeah.
It could be about sewing.
So my titles that I would go back and rename it if that was me. And I don't know, you might be like these are super titles, but Doomsday I thought would be a good title for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, without having seen it, it's a little harder for me to say. But also, that might tell us something. Doomsday doesn't shed any more light on it, you know.
Well, I mean, if you watched it, you'd get it, I
Cool.
guess. I think The Last of Us, Doomsday and The Last of Us are both other,
Right.
titles of video games, movies, whatever. Just because that's
The Last of Us is a good title.
right. That suits it. And then I made up this one. I don't think it's great, but I was like, at least it's kind of like touching on the price we pay.
So for my first example of bad titles, it's really more of a genre of bad titles, I think. And that's anything with haunted or haunting, the haunted, house on haunted hill, the haunting. I mean, there's, you can go on for like 30 minutes with titles that are in that vein. And I think they're mostly bad because there are so many that are similar and it's hard to know which ones you're talking about. And, you got to clarify, you're having a conversation. Like, no, not that one, but the one that, it stars this person or whatever. So I'm not a big fan of those. And it's also hard to look them up, SEO wise, like trying to find, if you Google that, you could easily find the wrong film.
Right. Well, I mean, to be fair, because I had the same thought with zombie movies. All right, Night of the Living Dead.
I agree with that too.
Night of the Living Dead started this whole
Return of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead.
All these dead in them. So it comes with someone being the first to name something, and then
right then. Well, I think maybe that was a trick that people tend to use, which is if there's a successful film and you name your film something similar, maybe you kind of like get some of the afterglow, which I wouldn't recommend unless you're like making a B movie version of that, but yeah, so I obviously the suggested alternative would just depend on the movie, but basically anything that's not that is what I would say. Just like lean into what makes your film unique and not just, go to the haunting. Because yes, all we know is it's a ghost story. Like you're already suggesting it's like, oh, this is just another ghost story because there's like a million like this,
No, that's fair. So is this me?
Yeah, we're up to bat.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite movies. But again, if you knew nothing about this movie and just saw it, it would at least it wouldn't jump out at me. And that is The Thing.
Yeah.
It's the John Carpenter one, which is
great movie, awful name.
well, it's a remake of A Thing from Another World, which was based on a novel called Who Goes There. And so The Thing, I'm just like, The Thing. Thing is the most like generic word ever. It fits. It earns the title when you watch it because you don't know what the alien is. But if I was going to try to give it a a better name, one I thought of because paranoia is such a big part of that is Trust No One. Shiver, I thought would actually be a good
That would
one.
be a good one.
This one's a little goofy, but I think Snow Angel, like that. Maybe that's way
Snow
too
Devil, maybe. Snow thing.
snow thing.
Ain't no thing but a snow thing.
Um,
I don't know.
but yeah, those
It's
are
like,
the cracks I gave it for trying to improve the
yeah. See, I
title.
mean, it's hard, right? Like, it's hard to name things. Uh, yeah. My next one I think could be better is actually Halloween. And
I'm gonna give you pushback on this, but
all right,
okay.
yeah, no, you feel free to disagree. But the reason I didn't like it is that it gives no indication of what it is, which is a slasher film. The SEO is going to be terrible because Halloween is one of the most used terms that people are going to search for, particularly at certain times of the year, and it you can't even like tell the genre from based on that. Like you don't know it's a horror. I mean, you assume it is because it's Halloween, but it could be like a kids movie, you know. So I just think, what could it be instead? Like, I mean, that's slasher films are tough because at the end of the day, there's not always a lot of meat on the bones. It does take place in Halloween, but it could be like the the Halloween we died, or like,
Well, technically, it's John Carpenter's Halloween. He
ah,
puts his name. I mean, the thing would also be John Carpenter's The Thing.
ooh, all right.
But what's interesting is they ended up with Halloween because they found out there was no other movie that used that, so they were getting first dibs on it. And the trend that came after that is all the slasher movies of the '80s that were named after holidays, and that still goes on today. Which
I just don't see the point in naming after Halloween. Also, it kind of makes you feel like there's a certain time of the year to watch it when any time of the year is a good time to watch it. I don't know. I just think it could have been better.
that's fair.
I will say that these movies, like Halloween, and there's a lot of names that I probably wouldn't choose, but it's because they're older. And I think back then there was there were less names were taken, and you had to worry about these kinds of things, like similar names less often. So you could say something that's like one word or whatever, a common word in it, and you were the first film to have that, so there was no confusing it. Now we got to try a little harder.
Yeah, I mean, like the first alternative to Halloween would be Trick or Treat, which has also been done twice by two different movies.
Right. Which both came after Halloween, I think, right?
Yeah, no, they did. So trying to come up with a name for a Halloween movie is going to be tough.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're not wrong. But I'm sure, it's like we could probably brainstorm something in this conversation that would be better than Halloween, I think, personally.
I don't know.
All right. Well, it's your next one.
My next one is a Stephen King story that has become a mini
I got a
series
Stephen King one on here too.
known as It.
Ha! Also on my list.
So
I got two Stephen King things, but that's one of them.
And I've read the book. I've seen both versions of the miniseries and then the movies that were made not long ago. And I get why it's called It, but come on, we got to do better than It.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, again, it's the book, but like, I feel like Stephen King should have known better with the book too.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And trying to come up with a good name for that. The best thing I could come up with was if he just called it Pennywise, because I'd be like, that's an interesting name, and I wouldn't know what it meant. But it's the clown
or Pennywise Pound Foolish. No, I'm just kidding. I hear you. I kind of think like there's maybe not a lot of us out there, but there are people like me who hate clowns. Like not in the like I'm scared of clowns and like to terrorize me, but in the like I just don't want to think about. Like I just don't care about it. Like if you tell me there's a clown movie, generally speaking, I'm like I don't care. Like so to me that'd be a turn off. But I could see what you're saying. It's better than It for sure.
Yeah, it's just It is so vague.
Yeah.
They're trying to hone in on something that tells you a little bit more about, I guess, the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I like Welcome to Derry better. I still think it has problems, but it's a better title for in that story verse.
It does have the advantage of Derry being established by It and probably other Stephen King stories that take place in Derry.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't like Welcome to Derry, don't get me wrong, but at least it's like gives you a little bit more. Yeah, well, I guess I'll do my other Stephen King one next. So since we're on theme here, which is Castle Rock. Haven't seen it yet. It's on my list, but I haven't seen it. But it just part of why I haven't seen it is because the name is just so uninspiring. I never reach for it. You know.
So I guess I can give you some context. Or do you
Well, I
know
know
the
it's
context?
about the town, right? That like a lot of Stephen King's stories take place in. But if you don't know that, which honestly I didn't know that till you actually told me that at some point, you well, so I lived in Colorado a long time, and in Colorado there's a town called Castle Rock.
Oh, interesting.
And it's like somewhere you drive through between Denver and Colorado Springs, and it's for me it just sort of like it just makes it more uninteresting because of that. So, anyways, that's neither here nor there. But,
Fair enough. I get it. Especially if you already know that Castle Rock and you're like, there's a movie about that. What? Like,
well, yeah,
series?
yeah. I mean, the thing I think that's what I dislike about it is that if you don't know already that Castle Rock is affiliated with Stephen King, is like in the Stephen Kingiverse, that you and I didn't, you wouldn't know it's in the genre of horror. You wouldn't know like what to expect from it. It's just, and this is like a thing that I meant to bring up earlier, which is that I have a pet peeve against films that have a character's or place's name in the title that are from the thing that you're about to watch, because it tells you nothing about it. It's just a name. Like uh particularly when the title's only the name. Jack
Right.
Reacher, terrible name.
Right.
But to each their own, I guess.
Well, Stephen King also has Carrie and Cujo and Christine, which are all single names. Though I will say, one of his more interesting titles, and Stephen King's one of my favorite authors, by the way. So I could pile on the praise for him. I think is Salem's Lot, but only if you know the context, because it's a town full of vampires, or becomes one. But it was originally called Jerusalem's Lot, and the sign got screwed up, so it ended up being Salem's Lot. So that's where
Yeah,
that came from. So
that's cool.
I thought that was a very cool way to name that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually agree with that. And there are always, like everything, there's exceptions, and I think the exception with that one too is the town of Salem has a context to it that that everybody's familiar with, that you automatically know the genre and the tone of the film essentially.
That's true too.
Yeah. And then the last one I'll touch on for me is The Fog. Uh, yeah, I know it's descriptive. It is what it is, but I feel like fog in general, the fog, like whatever. I'm not scared of fog. Obviously I'm scared of what's in the fog sometimes potentially, but fog itself is to me isn't really that. Uh, it doesn't do much for me.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. It doesn't bother me because there's a lot of horror movies that's called the whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah, exactly. And most of them, to be perfectly honest, most of them I'm not that into as a title.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
My next one is one of my favorite movies of the last 10 or so years. And I don't hate the title, it makes sense, but it just doesn't make me want to see it unless I know what the movie's about, and that is Green Room. Uh Jeremy Saulnier did Blue Ruin before that, which I thought was a better color title.
Yeah.
Like if you see the movie Blue Ruin, it makes sense. But Green Room, I'm like, okay, it's just a location where this happens. If you don't know what Green Room is, it's where a punk band plays a neo-Nazi venue and gets trapped there because of violence, and then things go south
It's
real
kind of like
quick.
a monster in a siege kind of
Yeah,
film.
it's a siege kind of situation. But it's such a neutral title that I was like,
Exactly. Could be a ballet. Could be
anything
any
that
performance of the Green Room.
right, it could be anything. And I'm not saying I got a better title, but maybe something that clues you in a little more to a genre piece is The Sound of Violence, like bands playing punk rock.
I actually think that's really good. It's a great title.
This one's kind of goofy, but it's fun. Punk's not dead, you are.
Yeah, my only pushback on that is like it's not a funny movie, so
right.
it's the wrong
too
tone.
serious. So it's very hard to come up with titles, especially from movies that you know and you love, and that you already think of them as something. But if you can separate it from it, it's kind of interesting to go through movies and be like, Is that the best title for that movie?
No, you're absolutely right.
And so I have one more.
Yeah, give us a bonus one.
So this one is interesting because it's very opposite of all the other titles. This movie is called Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. That is 16 syllables. Like
That's too long.
It's a long title, right?
And you're never going to remember that to go type it in your computer.
No, and the movie is really interesting. It's kind of like A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night meets Let the Right
Also, not
One
a
In.
great movie. I mean, not a great title, but a great movie.
Right. It's like a mix between that and Let the Right One In, sort of. But it's yeah, you have a vampire who doesn't want to drink people's blood, but then sees a person who's going to commit suicide and is like, oh, maybe you'll solve my problem. So
there's a whole theme of vampire movies with alternative blood, ways of finding alternative blood from not having to kill people, like True Blood or.
Right.
It's a whole subgenre of.
It's a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
Going against your nature. So the titles I came up for that are a little bit shorter would be Can't Feed, Lonely Blood, or Without Teeth. I'm not saying those are knocking it out of the park. I don't think any of my titles are, but just they clue you in a little more to what the movie is without where you can actually remember it.
Nice.
But I highly recommend all those movies if you have not seen them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that sheds some light on the process that we go through when we are choosing titles and, like what things to consider are whatever. Things that you can think about when you're trying to name your own projects. And, it's never easy. Feel free to run it by people you trust, friends and family. Take it for a test drive before you settle if you can. It's an amazing, the world, it's a wide world of really interesting things out there, ways of being creative. Like, why settle on something that's.
Yeah, I mean, go the extra mile. People will appreciate it. If you can't, I mean, you might hit a roadblock. You might be like, I can't do any better, because I think a lot of us struggle with that. And it's not like you don't judge a book by its cover, but you want to make that cover fucking cool. Right? That's
like, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but we all do, and we judge a movie by its title.
And I wanted to say something else about this, because there's a subgenre, a horror subgenre. If you're way into this stuff, I'm sure you know giallo movies, which are basically like the Italian murder mysteries that are kind of like Scooby-Doo in the sense you find out who the killer is by the end. But those actually do a pretty good job of they have a lot of interesting names, and I want to shout that out because I think that's pretty fascinating. So they have movies like The House with Laughing Windows. Your vice is locked in a room and only I have the key. Death Knocks Twice.
That's a bit long. Interesting, but a bit long.
The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire.
Okay.
The Devil Has Seven Faces.
I like that. That's good.
Your Hands on My Body. Like, I'm like, those are fucking wild titles, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. You know what? Actually, I didn't put this on my list, but one of my favorite titles is Touch of Evil.
Yeah, that's a great title.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for hanging with us. Peter, what are you excited about anything in the coming week? You going to check any movies out or?
Well, I'll leave you guys with a movie I just saw, called A Desert. And I will say it's kind of a neo-noir horror that I think came out last year. I can't tell if it's on Shudder or Amazon because I watched it on Amazon and now my Shudder's on Amazon. But then if you go to the IMDb page, it says it's on Amazon or AMC, but I don't think it said Shudder. But it's basically where a photographer goes on a road trip to this, barren parts of California, and he ends up at a seedy motel and things kind of go south from there. But it's kind of artsy without being pretentious, yet it leaves you with like this is getting dark kind of mood to it. It's directed by Joshua Erkman and written by Bozzy Baker. I guess they both kind of wrote it together, is what I gathered from the IMDb page. But I really enjoyed it. I thought all the performances were great, and it's a nice little indie that's modern if you're looking for something like that.
All right, cool. Go check out, what's it called again?
A Desert.
A Desert, right. And I'm excited to check out this week A Useful Ghost, which is Thailand's official entrance into the Oscars Best Foreign Picture category. But it sounds really interesting because it's about, I guess it follows like a grieving widower who discovers his deceased wife is possessed by has possessed a vacuum cleaner, and
Wow.
and it's kind of a horror comedy. But just that's all I know about it. But it sounds very intriguing. So I'm gonna see if I can check that out if I have time after baby's, watching my son and all the other things in my life. But thanks for hanging with
Well,
us.
I will also say, A Useful Ghost. That's a good title based on what the movie's about,
I agree.
right?
I love that title.
That's clever.
Yeah, so that's a good one to leave you on. A Useful Ghost, about a ghost that takes over a vacuum cleaner. All right, check back in next week for a brand new episode. In the meantime, go check out our website at nightmarelogic.net, where you can find today's show notes and see what else we got cooking. We'd like to give a big shout out to Lars Lang Peterson for the score, and you can find us on Instagram at NightmareLogicPod. Until next time, this is Christopher Smith with Peter Sawyer. Take care.